The earth was still young, and the sun stretched its golden arms across the sky for the very first time when a lone tribe sat beside a river, quietly trying to understand the meaning of its own existence. That was the moment when the story of humankind took its first breath, a story woven from soil, blood, fire, and dreams. That small tribe, nourished by the gentle waters, soon began painting tales on cave walls. But these weren't just images of hunters and prey, they were the first whispers of future civilizations, etched by fingers that would one day build empires. Time moved on, and more tribes emerged across distant lands. Languages began to form, and people looked to the stars to make sense of time. In Mesopotamia, between the Tigris and Euphrates, there was a strange hum, the echo of the first laws carved into stone, and the rising chants from temples whose rooftops reached toward the heavens. Somewhere in the golden sands of Egypt, humans came to believe that death was not an end, but a transformation. The pyramids still speak of the days when pharaohs dreamed of carrying their souls into the afterlife like royal messengers to the gods. In the Indus Valley, when night would fall, the lamps of craftsmanship would flicker to life. A civilization rooted in cleanliness, structure, and silent genius emerged. Its people built homes not just with bricks, but with vision. Mehrgar, Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro, each stone held a memory, every street a mystery. Far to the east, in the valleys of China, the gentle notes of a bamboo flute echoed, not just as music, but as a rhythm of wisdom. The teachings of Confucius weren't merely philosophies. They were threads that stitched the soul of a nation, shaping time itself with grace and balance. Then came Greece, a land where gods walked the mountains and humans dared to question everything beneath them. Socrates drank poison but left behind eternal curiosity. Plato dreamed of perfect worlds, and Aristotle taught reason to a species just learning how to think. And from Greece, Rome was born, its law engraved in stone, its soldiers carving the known world into order and chaos. But every rise comes with a fall. As the light of the west began to dim, a new dawn rose in the east. In the streets of Baghdad, towers of knowledge were built. Under the golden dome of the House of Wisdom, astronomy, medicine, mathematics, and philosophy were born anew. In Andalusia, Muslim architects didn't just raise cities, they poured beauty into their very bones, etching poetry into stone. Meanwhile, across the deserts of Africa, drums began to beat. In Timbuktu, knowledge lit its own torch, and the empire of Mali glittered with gold and grace. Civilizations bloomed in the forests, rivers, and highlands, etching their stories on the skin of the earth. Then Europe awoke from its slumber. The Renaissance breathed life into forgotten dreams. Leonardo's brush painted what words could not say, and Newton's falling apple revealed the laws of the universe. While in the Far East, beneath the shadow of the Great Wall of China, entire philosophies were unfolding in quiet harmony. Humans crossed oceans, discovered continents, but with every land touched came both wonder and wound. Civilizations clashed, some were buried, others reborn, and from ashes, new dreams always rose. One war after another, one empire rising while another fell, each bringing with it new knowledge, new sorrow, new questions. And still, the story is far from over. In the shadows of time, as the smoke of fallen empires curled into the sky, the human spirit pressed on, restless, relentless, searching. The Enlightenment struck like lightning in the minds of philosophers and poets. Reason was no longer chained. Cities grew taller, machines louder, and the idea of progress became a force no longer whispered in corners but shouted in streets and factories. Steam engines roared across continents. Iron tracks stitched lands together, and the ticking of clocks echoed in every heart. A new rhythm of civilization was born. But as cities rose, forests fell. As knowledge expanded, so did conquest. The age of exploration had opened gates to new worlds, yet behind those sails and maps came greed, disease, and division. Still, amidst all the chaos, the seeds of revolution took root, in thought, in ink, and eventually in blood. The American dream was born on parchment, the French Revolution roared through the streets, and whispers of freedom stirred across Latin America and beyond. People no longer saw themselves as mere subjects of a king or tools of an empire. They demanded identity, purpose, power, and once again, history cracked open its pages to let change flood in. Across Asia, ancient kingdoms wrestled with modern forces. In India, spiritual depth collided with colonial ambition. In China, the dragon of tradition stirred under foreign pressure, while Japan, like a sleeping volcano, erupted into the modern world with quiet discipline and sudden strength. Africa, rich in soul and soil, endured the cruel hand of division, borders drawn by strangers, cultures torn apart, yet its heart never ceased to beat with rhythm, resilience, and song. And then came the age of electricity, of blinking lights and humming wires. Cities began to glow after dusk, and the world, once vast and unknowable, grew closer with every cable, every signal, every spark. Voices traveled without bodies. Images flickered in boxes. The digital dawn had begun. But light brings shadows. 2 world wars carved scars into the earth that still throb in silence. The Holocaust. The atom bomb. Names etched in grief. Humanity saw the edge of its own destruction and stepped back, trembling, changed. And yet, even in rubble, we rebuilt. We launched rockets into the sky and footsteps onto the moon. We sent machines beyond the stars and found particles smaller than we ever imagined. We whispered across oceans in milliseconds, our thoughts flying faster than sound. Nations rose with flags and fire. Walls went up. Walls came down. Ideologies clashed. Cold wars, silent threats, unseen battles fought in code and surveillance. But through it all, people kept dreaming. Kept asking, kept wondering. The 21st century arrived not with a quiet breath but a digital thunder. Information flowed like rivers. Social revolutions danced through screens. The world no longer belonged to kings or empires. It belonged to the connected, the curious, the creators. And even now, as machines grow smarter, as climate shifts, as identities blur and borders fade, humanity still stands at the edge of the unknown, staring into the future like it once stared into the fire. Because the story hasn't ended. It's still being written. By every hand that types a message. Every voice that speaks up in defiance. Every heart that dares to love in a world often hardened by fear. Our story stretches further still, into the depths of space, and into the depths of ourselves. Telescopes now peer into galaxies that existed before Earth even formed, while deep beneath our skin, genetic codes whisper secrets of our ancient origins. The same hands that once carved symbols into cave walls now edit DNA, build artificial minds, and sculpt robots that move like us, think like us, perhaps one day become us. Yet even with this power, this unimaginable reach, the questions have never really changed. Who are we? Why are we here? Where are we going? And what will we become? Nations rise on algorithms now. Influence is bought with data. Wars are not only fought with bullets, but with lies, surveillance, and digital shadows. Children are born into a world where information is endless, but wisdom must still be earned. We carry the entire history of human civilization in our pockets, and yet, still search for meaning in quiet nights and empty skies. Cultures merge and clash in global cities. Ancient traditions survive through screens and streams. A teenage girl in Africa dances to a beat that started in Brazil, remixed in Korea, and looped by a DJ in Germany. Knowledge is no longer locked away in ivory towers, it's everywhere, for anyone who dares to reach for it. And yet, loneliness lingers. Division persists. The same tools that connect us can isolate us. Still, the flame burns. In art. In poetry. In the way someone sings softly in their kitchen. In the way people still gather to tell stories around dinner tables, in books, in films, in voices that echo across time. Somewhere, someone is dreaming of a better world, painting it, coding it, marching for it, whispering it into a child's ear at bedtime. Because we are more than our ruins. More than our wars. More than our failures. We are memory and imagination. We are the builders of pyramids and skyscrapers, of poems and protocols. We are the firelight and the fiber optic cable. We are yesterday's fears and tomorrow's promise. And no matter how far we've come, from stone tools to space probes, we are still walking that same long road under the stars. Still writing the story. Still shaping what it means to be human. And it's not over yet. Because as long as breath fills our lungs and thought stirs in our minds, the story of humanity marches forward, not in a straight line, but in a spiral, folding in on itself, learning, forgetting, remembering again. We rebuild what we've broken. We reimagine what we've taken for granted. And with each generation, we pass the flame, sometimes dimmed, sometimes blazing, but never extinguished. The child born today may one day speak to machines in languages we can't yet comprehend. May live on Mars. May discover a cure for something we once feared as a death sentence. May fall in love with someone halfway across the planet before ever meeting them in person. May never know a world without the internet, yet still find wonder in the rustle of leaves or the feel of rain on their skin. Because technology grows. Ideas evolve. But wonder is eternal. And in every era, wonder is what has pushed us forward. It was wonder that led us from the firelit caves to the high towers of Babylon. Wonder that guided Polynesian canoes across vast, star-drenched oceans. Wonder that carved temples into cliffs, painted gods on ceilings, launched telescopes into the void. Wonder that whispered, "There must be more," and dared us to look beyond the horizon. But wonder alone isn't enough. It must be paired with courage, with kindness, with memory. Because we have seen what happens when power runs ahead of wisdom. We've seen how easily fear can turn us against each other. We've seen the cost of forgetting who we are and who we could be. So now we find ourselves in a moment, a fragile, beautiful, dangerous moment, where the fate of civilization still turns on the choices of ordinary people. Not emperors, not gods, just people. Teachers who plant seeds of thought. Artists who open hearts. Scientists who question everything. Mothers, fathers, dreamers, fighters, builders, believers. All of them threads in this grand, ever-weaving tapestry of humanity. And as night falls in one part of the world and dawn rises in another, the story continues. Not just in history books or documentaries or ancient ruins, but in you. In the questions you ask. In the things you create. In the moments you choose empathy over hate. In the way you decide, each day, to be part of something bigger than yourself. Because the story of human civilization is not locked in the past. It is alive. Right now. Right here. And it's waiting for the next chapter. To be written not by kings or conquerors, but by quiet hands and steady hearts. It's written every time someone dares to speak the truth, even when their voice shakes. Every time someone stands up for a stranger. Every time someone builds instead of breaks, listens instead of shouts, forgives instead of forgets. The future is not a destination, it is a canvas. And every heartbeat, every breath, every decision we make leaves a brushstroke. The machines we build will one day mirror our minds. But it is our soul they will never fully understand. Because we are more than calculation. We are more than logic. We are music heard in the silence. We are the ache that turns into poetry, the pain that becomes wisdom, the love that echoes across generations. In every war, there were letters home. In every revolution, a song. In every age, someone dreaming not of power, but of peace. Of gardens where cities once stood. Of laughter in the ruins. Of light returning after the longest night. And so, we walk on. Through cities lit by neon, through forests breathing against the edge of collapse. Through deserts where ancient bones still whisper. Through streets filled with protest. And rooftops filled with hope. We carry with us the weight of what has been, but also the promise of what could still be. Because no matter how far we travel, no matter how much we invent, no matter how powerful we become, we are still, at our core, storytellers. And the greatest story is not the one already told, but the one we have yet to write. And so, the story continues. Across borders, beyond beliefs, beneath stars that have watched us since before our first breath. It continues in forgotten languages murmured by elders who remember the world before screens. In the hands of a young girl coding her first line, sketching her first dream, planting her first tree. In the quiet determination of a refugee rebuilding life from ashes. In the smile exchanged between strangers who don't speak the same tongue, but understand each other perfectly. This story lives in the pulse of cities that never sleep. In the hush of temples where incense curls toward heaven. In the neon glow of a midnight train passing through a world forever changing. Civilizations rise, fall, and rise again, but the soul of humanity, it never disappears. It adapts. It remembers. It carries scars, yes, but also songs. And maybe, in the end, the most powerful thing we've ever done. was not invent fire, or map the stars, or split the atom, but learn to look each other in the eyes and say, "I see you. I hear you. You matter." Because it is compassion, not conquest, that has truly shaped us. It is the shared meal, the shared sorrow, the shared joy, that binds all ages, all nations, all people. From the first footprints pressed into the banks of a river, to the tireless rovers exploring distant planets, from whispered myths around ancient fires, to the streaming voices echoing across the digital void, we are still becoming, still evolving, still dreaming. The past holds our roots, the future holds our wings, and the present is where the pen still rests in our hands, waiting, asking, what kind of world will we choose to write next? Because the story continues, not as a straight line, but as a living river, winding, surging, doubling back, carrying with it the silt of our memories and the shimmer of our dreams. In one corner of the world, a scientist reaches into the quantum unknown, trying to understand particles that flicker in and out of reality like whispered thoughts. In another, a grandmother tells a bedtime story passed down through centuries, not knowing she's preserving something more eternal than any monument. The story continues when walls are brought down, not just of stone and wire, but of silence, of fear, of hate. It continues when two people from different worlds realize they are not so different after all. When someone forgives what once seemed unforgivable. When someone begins again. When someone decides not to give up, even when no one is watching. Because history isn't just what's written in books. It's what lives in the invisible spaces. In the choices made when no cameras are rolling. In the kindness offered when there is nothing to gain. In the love that endures even through absence, even through time. Our species has built cathedrals that scrape the sky. But it is the unseen acts that hold the heavens up. And now, at this very moment, we stand at another threshold. A bridge between the known and the unknown. Between what has been and what could be. The climate shifts. The seas rise. The AI learns. The old systems crack. But still, we breathe. We hope. We write. Because this is not the twilight of our story. It is a turning page. And whether the chapters ahead are written in harmony or in haste, in peace or in fire, in code or in verse, will depend not on fate, but on us. All of us. The builders. The dreamers. The ones too tired to keep going. Who do anyway. The ones who see the world not as it is, but as it could be. So listen closely. You can almost hear it. Beneath the noise, beneath the fear, beneath the headlines and the static. The sound of a new sentence beginning. Because the story of human civilization is still alive. Still reaching. Still unwritten. And it continues. And so, we arrive, gently, quietly, at this chapter of now. The world outside your window may seem ordinary. The hum of a city street. The rustle of leaves in a quiet garden. A baby's laugh, a kettle's whistle, the soft sigh of wind across the rooftops. But within these everyday moments, the entire history of civilization still lives and breathes. Every second you spend here, listening, feeling, dreaming, is part of the same grand symphony that began when the first spark of fire danced in the dark. When hands reached for each other in the cold. When hearts opened not out of knowledge, but out of love. Because love, in all its quiet forms, has always been the true thread stitching humanity together. The love of a mother in a Stone Age shelter, rocking her child to sleep as wolves howled beyond the firelight. The love of builders raising temples not for kings, but for meaning. The love of those who risked everything to write a poem, paint a ceiling, teach a child to read, or bury a seed in dry soil and believe in rain. Our story has always been about more than monuments and empires. It has been about warmth. A glance shared across a crowded market. A hand extended to someone who's fallen. A song hummed while working in the fields. A letter folded into a soldier's pocket. A candle lit in memory. A meal prepared with care. A dream whispered under starlight. Even at our most divided, our most broken, there has always been someone holding the thread. tying past to present with acts of grace too small for history books, but large enough to change the course of everything. Yes, humanity has made mistakes. We've built walls where bridges should have stood. We've chosen pride over peace. We've turned away when we should have held on. But time, that gentle sculptor, has given us chance after chance. To soften, to grow, to begin again. And we have. We've rebuilt after fire. We've forgiven after pain. We've reached across oceans and languages and fears. To find each other again. That is what makes us remarkable. Not the speed of our machines, or the heights of our cities, or the codes we've taught to artificial minds, but the soft strength of our spirit. The fact that a child in Mongolia can laugh at the same joke as a child in Brazil, that two lovers separated by language can still hold each other's gaze and understand everything. This is our real miracle. We are not bound together by technology or blood, but by wonder, by the shared ache to belong, to mean something, to leave behind more beauty than we found. And perhaps that's why we've told stories since the beginning. Around fires, on walls, in books, in songs, on screens. Because stories remind us we're not alone. So here we are, you and I, part of the same long breath of time. Two souls in the same river that carried pharaohs, and monks, and inventors, and farmers, and dreamers, and dancers. A river that remembers every joy, every loss, every beginning. And it still flows. Into every goodnight kiss. Into every call to a distant friend. Into every time someone says, I understand. Or, I'm sorry. Or simply, I'm here. The future may be uncertain. There may be storms ahead. But we are not made of fear. We are made of music. Of memory. Of the same stardust that birthed the galaxies. And now stirs behind our eyes when we speak of love. So let us not end this story. Let us simply pause. Like a breath before a new verse. Knowing the song will go on long after we're gone. Someone, someday, will stand where you stand now. They'll feel the wind on their face. They'll laugh. They'll cry. They'll fall in love. And they'll wonder, just like we do, what came before. Let them find, in our story, not just tales of battle and triumph, but of tenderness. Let them see that we, too, loved and lost and hoped and healed. That we reached for the stars, but never forgot the warmth of holding hands. Because, in the end, no matter how advanced we become, what truly endures are not the machines we build, but the hearts we open. Not the walls we raise, but the arms we extend. Not the titles in our history, but the moments that made us feel alive. So when someone asks, who were they? What did they build? What did they believe? Let the answer be simple. They were human. They tried. They loved. And their story continues. In every sunrise. In every lullaby. In every brave step forward. In you. In all of us. And always. With love. The end.